Russian forces have mounted a large attack on Zaporizhzhia in Ukraine, killing at least one and injuring 13 more. That's according to the city's mayor. The overnight rocket bombardment started several fires in the southeastern city that engulfed residential buildings. The mayor says 2 children were among those injured. The attack is the latest in Russia's unrelenting campaign against Ukraine in a war that's lasted more than 3 years, and evidence is mounting that Russia's war effort is drawing military assistance from Chinese companies. DW's Clifford Coonan took a closer look.
It was Russia's largest drone and missile attack since the war began. On September 7, Russia fired a total of 823 projectiles into Ukraine. According to numerous reports, many of the key components in Russia's drones come from Chinese suppliers, despite Western sanctions. While most Western nations have cut ties with Moscow since it invaded Ukraine in February 2022, China's relations with Russia have strengthened. This month, Xi Jinping welcomed Vladimir Putin to Beijing for a military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. The Chinese president hailed the two leaders' closeness.
China-Russian relations have withstood the test of changing global circumstances, building a lasting friendship and comprehensive strategic cooperation, a model of win-win relations between major powers.
China buys nearly half of Russia's oil exports and sells it everything from cars to electronics. Ukraine's intelligence agency says Beijing supports Moscow from the sidelines by allowing Chinese firms to export goods with dual commercial and military purposes. It says China is providing gunpowder, specialized chemicals, machinery and components directly to at least 20 Russian defense plants. A recent investigation by the UK's Daily Telegraph identified 97 Chinese suppliers providing key components for the Russian drones deployed in Ukraine, including aircraft engines, microchips, metal alloys, camera lenses and carbon fibre yarns. Meanwhile, Reuters reports that Chinese-made engines are being covertly shipped via front companies to a state-owned drone manufacturer in Russia. Both the US and EU have repeatedly imposed sanctions on companies in third-party countries, including China, alleged to provide dual-use technology. China says it has strict controls and claims it's neutral in the war. But Ukraine intelligence says the Chinese-made components in drones discovered on the battlefield tell a different story.
Let's bring in David Kirichenko, a freelance journalist and Eastern Europe expert. Welcome to DW. Now, back in May this year, the U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham wrote that, quote, "Without China's support, Putin's war machine comes to a halt." Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, certainly. I would say I've even talked to Ukrainian drone producers that showed me records that they order from the exact same Chinese producers of fiber optics. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians order from the same companies, and the Chinese have begun restricting certain drones, such as the Mavics. But yes, China is, if it wanted to, it certainly has the power to bring the war to a halt just by stopping the supply of these components and drones to Russia.
The U.S. and the EU have imposed sanctions on third-party countries, including China, in the past, but that doesn't seem to deter Beijing. Why is that? What is China getting out of this?
Well, China benefits economically from selling all these components, and they call it dual use. So it's hard for the West to go after and start targeting China and sanctioning them for what they call is just exporting dual use or normal technologies to the Russians, of which it goes directly into their drones and missiles that they use to hit Ukrainian cities. And now those drones are harassing Europe in Romania and Poland. About 80% of the critical components in these drones come from Chinese or other Chinese electronics. And a lot of these components are going into the missiles that are bombing Ukrainian cities. And it's certainly increasing Russia's dependence on China. China's benefiting economically, and it keeps Russia going in its war to fight against the West and keep the West bogged down in Europe, so that, as China's foreign minister said, America and the West can't pivot to focusing on what China is doing in the Asia Pacific.
Now, it's long been known that China supports Russia in one way or another in its war efforts against Ukraine. But why are they not admitting it more openly? Because they're saying that really here they are neutral.
Well, I think China certainly wants to be careful that it's not overly engaging with the outside of with the what we could call the modern axis of evil of countries like North Korea, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, because China is very dependent on exports and being very focused on its economic situation. So the Chinese are certainly wanting to continue to have good ties, good trade relations with the West, and to be able to continue exporting goods. And so behind the scenes, China certainly wants to keep Russia well supplied and the war going, but it doesn't want to be too overt about it. But we're certainly seeing a convergence between these different autocratic states that want to wage war and destroy the West. The drone technologies are being shared with one another. The Iranians helped the Russians develop the first Shahed factories in Russia. Some of these Shahed models from Iran have been exported out to Venezuela. The Russians are now giving some of their drone technology to the North Koreans. And you're seeing these powers working more closely on a technological level.
Yeah, we also saw that during China's big military parade in Beijing, where we saw Xi flanked by Putin and the North Korean and Indian leaders. Thank you so much. That was journalist David Kirichenko.
Thank you.